If you're seeing this, heaven is calling you, not by accident, not by coincidence, but because your soul was ready to hear what your heart has been silently asking for. There are moments in life when everything looks normal on the outside, yet inside you feel restless, tired, confused, or quietly broken, and in those moments you wonder if anyone truly sees you, if anyone understands the weight you carry without speaking. And heaven answers in ways the mind cannot predict, sometimes not through thunder or visions but through a simple message that finds you at the exact second your spirit needed reassurance. This is one of those moments. This is not random. You did not stumble upon these words by chance. Something greater gently guided you here because heaven knows you have been strong for too long without being comforted. You have smiled while hurting. You have continued while feeling empty. You have prayed quietly, or maybe you stopped praying because you felt unheard, but even in your silence heaven never stopped listening. Every tear you wiped away when no one was watching was counted. Every deep breath you took just to survive another day was noticed. Every night you lay awake thinking about what went wrong or what you could have done differently was seen by a love far bigger than your regrets. Heaven is calling you because it wants you to know you are not forgotten, you are not delayed, and you are not being punished. You are being prepared. There are seasons when answers do not come quickly because your strength is being built in ways you cannot yet see. You may feel like you are walking through fog, unsure of the next step, doubting your worth, questioning your purpose, but heaven sees the full path even when you can only see the ground beneath your feet. The delays you are experiencing are not denials, they are divine timing aligning things you could never arrange on your own. Heaven is calling you to remind you that what feels like loss is often protection, what feels like silence is often instruction, and what feels like waiting is often transformation. You have been asking why doors closed when you were so close, why people walked away when you needed them most, why plans fell apart after you invested your heart into them, and heaven answers by saying some doors had to close because they were leading you away from who you are meant to become. Some people had to leave because they were only meant to walk with you for a season, and some plans had to fail because your destiny requires a version of you that only pressure could shape. Heaven is calling you back to trust, not blind trust, but deep trust that grows even when evidence is thin. Trust that your life is not spinning out of control but being carefully guided. Trust that the pain you endured was not wasted but woven into wisdom, empathy, and strength. Heaven knows how close you were to giving up. How many times you whispered, "I can't do this anymore." How often you felt like your prayers were bouncing back empty, yet even then unseen hands were holding you steady, unseen doors were opening slowly, unseen protection was surrounding you. Heaven is calling you because it wants you to lift your head again, to breathe without fear, to release the guilt of not being enough. You do not have to earn love through suffering, you do not have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You are loved now as you are. Broken pieces and all. Heaven is not waiting for you to be perfect. Heaven is waiting for you to believe you are still chosen, even after mistakes, even after failures, even after moments you are ashamed to remember. Your past does not disqualify you, it qualifies you to understand grace. The voice calling you is not here to condemn you but to restore you, not to remind you of where you failed but to show you where you are going. You are standing at a quiet turning point even if nothing around you looks different yet. Inner shifts always happen before outer change. Seeds grow underground before breaking the surface, and heaven is calling you to stay patient during this unseen work, to not abandon hope just because results are delayed, to not measure your life by comparison, because your journey is custom designed. What is meant for you will not pass you by. It will find you at the right time in the right form. Heaven is calling you to let go of the heavy expectations you placed on yourself, to forgive yourself for not knowing then what you know now, to stop replaying moments that cannot be changed. Peace begins when you release what you were never meant to carry forever. You are allowed to rest, you are allowed to heal, you are allowed to start again without explaining yourself to everyone. Heaven is calling you to remember that your story is still being written. This chapter is not the conclusion, even if it feels long, even if it feels lonely, even if it feels uncertain. The author has not abandoned the story, and the next pages hold more light than you can currently imagine. You have survived things you once thought would destroy you, and that survival was not luck, it was purpose protecting you. The fact that you are still here, still breathing, still searching for meaning is proof that heaven is not done with you yet. So if you're seeing this, pause for a moment, let your shoulders relax, let your breath slow, and let this truth settle gently into your heart. You are seen, you are guided, you are loved beyond measure, and heaven is calling you not to fear the road ahead but to walk it knowing you are never walking alone. And as you continue walking forward even when your steps feel unsure, heaven is calling you to understand that growth rarely feels gentle while it is happening. It often feels like stretching, like pressure, like being asked to hold on when everything inside you wants to release. But the discomfort you feel is not meant to break you. It is meant to expand you into someone who can carry what is coming next. There are blessings ahead that require a stronger heart, a calmer mind, and a deeper trust than you once had, and heaven has been shaping you quietly through experiences that taught you patience, resilience, and discernment. Even the moments you thought were setbacks were lessons wrapping themselves in disguise. You did not lose time, you gained clarity, you did not fall behind, you were redirected. Heaven is calling you to stop judging your progress by how fast things move and start recognizing how far you have come. Remember who you were before the pain changed you, before disappointment matured you, before loss deepened you. You are no longer that same person, and that is not something to mourn, it is something to honor, because survival transformed you into someone who understands depth, compassion, and strength in ways others may never fully grasp. Heaven sees the quiet courage it took for you to keep showing up when no one applauded your effort, the silent battles you won without witnesses, the nights you cried and still chose to wake up and try again. Those moments built a foundation that cannot be shaken easily. Heaven is calling you to trust that what is being built within you is far more important than what is being taken from you, because character sustains blessings longer than excitement ever could. You may feel like you have been in a season of waiting for far too long, watching others move ahead, achieve dreams, celebrate milestones, while you feel paused. But heaven is calling you to remember that delay is not rejection. Some paths require more preparation because the impact will be greater, some gifts need more maturity because they carry responsibility, and some answers come slowly because they are meant to last. Heaven is never late, it is precise, and what arrives at the right time brings peace rather than pressure. You are being spared from rushing into something that would have cost you your peace. Heaven is calling you to release the fear that time is running out. Your life is not behind schedule, it is unfolding according to wisdom beyond what you can see right now. The pressure you feel to figure everything out is not coming from heaven, because heaven does not rush what it cherishes, it nurtures it patiently, step by step, layer by layer. Heaven is calling you to come back to stillness, to quiet the noise of expectations, comparisons, and self-criticism, because clarity is born in calm, not chaos. The answers you seek will not arrive through panic, they will come through peace, through moments when you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting guidance. Heaven speaks softly most of the time, through intuition, through small signs, through gentle nudges that guide you away from harm and toward alignment, and the more you learn to listen without fear, the clearer that voice becomes. Heaven is calling you to forgive those who hurt you, not because what they did was acceptable, but because holding on to bitterness keeps you tied to a past that no longer deserves access to your heart. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is freeing yourself from carrying a weight you were never meant to bear forever. Heaven wants your hands empty so they can be filled with something new, something lighter, something life-giving, and that cannot happen while you are gripping old pain tightly. Heaven is calling you to forgive yourself too, for trusting the wrong people, for staying too long, for ignoring signs, for making choices that led to heartbreak. You did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. Growth comes from reflection, not self-punishment. Shame was never meant to be your identity, it was only meant to be a teacher. Heaven is calling you to see yourself through kinder eyes, the same eyes that see your intentions, your effort, your capacity to love deeply even after being wounded. Heaven is calling you to believe again, not necessarily in outcomes, but in your ability to handle whatever comes. Confidence is not knowing everything will go perfectly, it is knowing you will not be destroyed by imperfection. You are stronger than you think, wiser than you realize, and more supported than you feel. Heaven is calling you to step forward with courage, even if fear walks beside you, because bravery is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to keep moving while fear whispers doubts. Heaven will meet you in motion. Guidance appears when you choose to walk, not when you stay frozen by overthinking. Trust that the path will reveal itself one step at a time. You are not meant to see the whole journey at once, that would overwhelm you. You are only meant to take the next right step, and heaven will handle the rest. Heaven is calling you to remember that you are allowed to want more peace, more purpose, more alignment, without feeling guilty for desiring a life that feels true to you. Your dreams are not selfish, they were placed in you for a reason, and even if they look impossible right now, seeds do not resemble trees, and beginnings rarely resemble fulfillment. Heaven is calling you to protect your hope, not expose it to every opinion, not explain it to those who cannot understand it. Nurture it quietly until it is strong enough to stand on its own. There is power in sacred silence, power in growing without announcing, power in trusting without needing validation. Heaven is calling you to stay, to not walk away from your own life just because it became heavy. This season will shift. This weight will lift. This confusion will clear, and when it does, you will look back and realize that the calling you heard in your lowest moment was actually an invitation to rise into a deeper, truer version of yourself, one that knows peace is not found in control but in surrender, one that understands that being guided does not mean never struggling, it means never struggling alone, and one that can finally say with quiet confidence that even when the road was dark, heaven was always close, always watching, always calling you forward. And in this quiet unfolding of your life, heaven is calling you to notice how often you were protected without realizing it, how many times something did not work out and later you understood why it could never have sustained you. There were relationships that would have slowly drained your spirit, opportunities that would have pulled you away from your values, paths that looked attractive but carried hidden costs. And heaven gently removed you before you could lose yourself, even when the removal felt painful, even when it felt unfair. Protection often feels like loss in the moment, but clarity arrives with time. Heaven is calling you to trust that what left your life made room for something that aligns more deeply with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Growth requires space, and sometimes space only comes when old things fall away. You are not being emptied, you are being prepared. Heaven is calling you to release the habit of replaying conversations that ended, imagining different outcomes, or wishing you had spoken differently. Peace does not live in rewinding the past, it lives in accepting that some chapters end without the closure you wanted, and that closure can be a decision rather than an explanation. Heaven is calling you to close doors gently, without anger, without regret, without bitterness. Simply with understanding that what once served you no longer fits the person you are now. Heaven sees how much you have outgrown, even if others still expect you to remain the same. You are allowed to change, you are allowed to evolve, you are allowed to disappoint people who only knew a previous version of you. Heaven is calling you to honor the person you are becoming, even if that means standing alone for a while. Solitude is not punishment, it is often the space where clarity is born, where your voice becomes clearer without the noise of external opinions, where you learn to hear heaven more distinctly. Do not rush to fill empty spaces with distractions just to avoid feeling. because feelings are messengers. They reveal what needs healing, what needs attention, what needs release. Heaven is calling you to feel without fear, to sit with discomfort long enough to understand what it is teaching you. Avoidance delays healing, but presence invites transformation. Heaven is calling you to stop doubting your intuition, that quiet inner knowing that has tried to guide you before. Intuition is one of the ways heaven whispers, and every time you ignore it, confusion grows, but every time you honor it, clarity follows. Trust the nudges that pull you toward peace, even if they do not make sense logically. Alignment rarely needs justification, it feels right before it looks right. Heaven is calling you to understand that not everyone will understand your journey, and that is okay. Your path was not designed for public approval, it was designed for inner peace. Stop shrinking your truth to keep others comfortable. You were not meant to live a life that feels small just to avoid judgment. Heaven is calling you to live honestly, gently, and courageously, even when it requires letting go of familiar identities. Sometimes the hardest part of growth is releasing who you thought you had to be. Heaven is calling you to choose depth over performance, authenticity over approval, and peace over constant productivity. Your worth is not measured by how much you do, how much you give, or how much you endure. You are worthy because you exist, because you breathe, because you are part of something greater. Heaven is calling you to rest without guilt, to slow down without fear, to understand that stillness is not wasted time, it is sacred ground where strength is restored, answers surface, and alignment is renewed. Even the earth rests between seasons, and so must you. Heaven is calling you to release the fear of being forgotten if you pause. What is meant for you will find you even when you are still. You do not have to chase destiny. It moves toward you when you are aligned. Heaven is calling you to heal your relationship with time, to stop rushing the present just to arrive at a future that may not feel fulfilling if you skip this moment. Life is happening now, even in the waiting, even in the uncertainty. There is meaning here, lessons here, grace here. Heaven is calling you to see the beauty in becoming, not just in arriving, because arrival is a moment, but becoming is a lifetime, and every stage matters, even the messy, unclear, in-between ones. Heaven is calling you to let go of the belief that you are behind. There is no universal timeline for fulfillment, no fixed age for purpose, no deadline for joy. Comparison steals peace because it ignores context, and your context is sacred, shaped by experiences that uniquely prepared you for what is ahead. Heaven is calling you to stop explaining your growth to those committed to misunderstanding you. Silence can be wisdom, boundaries can be love, distance can be healing. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Protect what is tender, protect what is growing. Heaven is calling you to remember that faith is not certainty, it is willingness, willingness to keep showing up, to keep believing, to keep trusting even when clarity has not fully arrived. Heaven is not asking you to have all the answers, it is asking you to stay open, stay receptive, stay willing to be guided. Miracles often begin as quiet shifts long before they appear as visible change. Heaven is calling you to pay attention to small improvements, subtle peace, moments of calm that did not exist before. These are signs that alignment is happening, even if your circumstances have not yet caught up. Inner change always leads outer change. Heaven is calling you to be patient with the process, impatient with fear, and gentle with yourself. You are learning how to live in a deeper way than before. And depth takes time, but it brings fulfillment that surface level success never could. Heaven is calling you to keep going, even when motivation fades, because purpose is not sustained by emotion alone, it is sustained by commitment, commitment to your healing, to your truth, to your becoming. And as you continue, step by step, breath by breath, you will realize that the call you heard was not pulling you away from yourself, it was leading you home, back to a place of inner alignment, peace, and trust, where you finally understand that even through uncertainty, Heaven has been guiding you all along. And as this calling continues to echo within you, heaven is inviting you to look at your life with softer eyes, not as a series of mistakes or missed chances, but as a journey that has been shaping you with intention. Even the detours carried meaning, even the pauses held purpose. Nothing about your path has been wasted. Heaven does not rush creation, it refines it, and you are still in the process of refinement. Which is why things may feel slow, uncertain, or unfinished. Heaven is calling you to release the pressure to have everything figured out. Clarity is not demanded all at once, it unfolds gradually as you walk in alignment. Each step reveals the next, and trying to see too far ahead only creates anxiety. Trust grows when you focus on what is being asked of you now, not what might be required later. Heaven is calling you to anchor yourself in the present moment. Because peace does not exist in the past you cannot change or the future you cannot control, it exists here, in this breath, in this moment of awareness, in this quiet realization that you are still here for a reason. Heaven is calling you to stop questioning your value based on outcomes. Success and failure are not measures of worth, they are experiences, lessons, and sometimes redirections. Your value remains constant through all of it. Heaven sees you beyond your productivity, beyond your achievements, beyond your struggles. It sees your heart, your intentions, your capacity for growth. Heaven is calling you to understand that some blessings arrive disguised as responsibilities. They stretch you, challenge you, and require maturity. Not everything that is good feels easy, and not everything that feels easy is good. Discernment grows through experience, and you have gained more discernment than you realize. Heaven is calling you to trust your judgment now, not the judgment shaped by fear or past wounds, but the wisdom earned through reflection and healing. You are no longer the person who reacts impulsively, you are becoming someone who responds intentionally. Heaven is calling you to pause before reacting, to choose calm over chaos, understanding over assumption, peace over being right, because inner stability creates outer stability, and the more grounded you become, the less shaken you are by external circumstances. Heaven is calling you to recognize that not every battle requires your energy. Some conflicts are distractions meant to pull you away from your alignment. Silence can be a powerful response, walking away can be strength, and choosing peace is never weakness. Heaven is calling you to protect your emotional energy, to stop pouring into places that do not replenish you. Exhaustion is often a sign of misalignment, not effort. When you are aligned, effort feels meaningful, even when it is demanding. Heaven is calling you to realign gently, without judgment, without guilt, simply by noticing what drains you and what restores you, and choosing accordingly. Heaven is calling you to trust that it is okay to change direction when something no longer resonates. Growth requires flexibility, not rigidity. You are allowed to revise your plans, redefine your dreams, and reimagine your life without feeling like you failed. Evolution is not betrayal of your past self, it is honoring the lessons that brought you here. Heaven is calling you to let go of identities that no longer fit, roles you accepted out of obligation, expectations you carried to please others. None of these define your essence, they were only chapters, not the whole story. Heaven is calling you to listen closely to what brings you peace, not excitement that fades quickly, but peace that settles deeply. Peace is a compass, and when something aligns with your purpose, it will feel grounding, not frantic, expansive, not draining. Heaven is calling you to be honest about what you want, not what you think you should want. Honesty with yourself is the beginning of freedom, and freedom is essential for fulfillment. Heaven is calling you to rebuild trust, not just in others, but in yourself. Trust that you can make decisions without constant second-guessing. Trust that you can handle change. Trust that you can survive uncertainty. You already have, many times. Heaven is calling you to see your resilience not as something that hardened you, but as something that strengthened you while keeping your heart capable of love. Sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness, and awareness is power. Heaven is calling you to stay open-hearted without being unguarded. Boundaries protect love, they do not block it. Heaven is calling you to stop waiting for permission to live authentically. You do not need approval to be yourself. You were created with intention, and that intention includes your uniqueness, your perspective, your voice. Heaven is calling you to speak kindly to yourself. Because the way you speak inwardly shapes the way you experience life outwardly. Replace harsh inner dialogue with patience, encouragement, and compassion. You would never speak to someone you love the way you sometimes speak to yourself. Heaven is calling you to treat yourself with that same care. Heaven is calling you to remember that healing is not linear. Some days you will feel strong, other days old emotions will resurface. This does not mean you are moving backward, it means you are processing deeply. Layers heal in stages, and each stage brings greater clarity. Heaven is calling you to stay committed to your healing even when it becomes uncomfortable, because comfort zones rarely lead to transformation. Heaven is calling you to keep choosing growth over familiarity, even when familiarity feels safer. Safety built on stagnation eventually becomes confinement, but growth expands your life, your understanding, and your capacity for joy. Heaven is calling you to trust that joy will return in a fuller, calmer form, not as fleeting excitement, but as steady peace, a peace that remains even when circumstances shift. This is the kind of joy that heaven cultivates, and it grows slowly, but it lasts. Heaven is calling you to continue forward with humility and courage, knowing that you are supported even when you cannot feel it, guided even when you cannot see it, and loved even when you doubt it. This calling is not about becoming someone else, it is about remembering who you have always been beneath fear, expectation, and survival. And as you move deeper into this remembrance, you will begin to feel less lost and more aligned, less anxious and more grounded, less disconnected and more at home within yourself, because the call you heard was never outside of you, it was always resonating within, gently guiding you back to truth, back to peace, and back to the quiet certainty that you are exactly where you need to be for the next unfolding of your life. And as this understanding settles deeper within you, heaven is calling you to stop fearing the unknown, because uncertainty is not the enemy, it is the doorway through which transformation enters. Certainty keeps you comfortable, but uncertainty keeps you evolving, and evolution is where your true purpose unfolds. Heaven is calling you to release the need to control outcomes. Control is often a response to fear, not wisdom. And fear narrows your vision, while trust expands it. When you loosen your grip on how things must happen, you create space for how things can happen in ways far greater than you imagined. Heaven is calling you to surrender expectations that no longer serve your peace, expectations of people, of timelines, of yourself, because unmet expectations create resentment. But acceptance creates freedom. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means acknowledging reality without resistance so you can respond with clarity instead of frustration. Heaven is calling you to move from resistance to flow, from force to alignment. Life moves more gently when you stop fighting its current and learn to navigate with it. Heaven is calling you to recognize how much strength it took to become soft again after being hurt. Softness after pain is courage, not weakness. It means you chose healing over bitterness, openness over walls, and that choice will shape the quality of your future more than any achievement ever could. Heaven is calling you to protect your softness, not by hiding it, but by placing it in environments where it can be honored, nurtured, and reciprocated. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Discernment is an act of self-respect. Heaven is calling you to understand that loneliness does not always mean you are alone. Sometimes it means you are between connections, between versions of yourself, between chapters, and those in-between spaces are sacred. They allow you to hear your own voice without interference, to reconnect with your intuition, to remember what truly matters to you. Heaven is calling you to stop filling silence with noise just to avoid discomfort. Silence holds answers, clarity, and healing. When you allow yourself to sit quietly, insights surface naturally. Heaven is calling you to trust that you will meet the right people at the right time, connections that align with who you are becoming, not who you were when you were surviving. Forced connections fade, aligned connections endure. You do not need to chase belonging. Belonging finds you when you are authentic. Heaven is calling you to be patient with relationships unfolding slowly. Depth cannot be rushed. Meaningful bonds are built through consistency, honesty, and time. Heaven is calling you to release relationships that require you to shrink, explain yourself constantly, or abandon your peace. Love that costs your peace is too expensive. Heaven is calling you to choose peace even when it feels unfamiliar. Chaos can feel normal when you have lived in it for too long, but peace may feel strange at first. Stay with it. Your nervous system is learning safety. Heaven is calling you to rebuild your sense of safety from within, not relying solely on external stability, but cultivating inner steadiness that remains even when circumstances shift. Inner safety comes from self-trust, from knowing you can handle discomfort without abandoning yourself. Heaven is calling you to stop abandoning yourself to please others. Self-betrayal always creates inner conflict, but self-honoring creates alignment. Alignment simplifies life, decisions become clearer, boundaries feel natural, and peace becomes consistent. Heaven is calling you to align your actions with your values, not your fears. Fear-based decisions create short-term relief but long-term regret. Value-based decisions may feel challenging initially, but they bring lasting fulfillment. Heaven is calling you to slow down enough to notice how your body responds to choices. Tension signals misalignment, ease signals truth. Your body holds wisdom your mind sometimes ignores. Heaven is calling you to listen. Heaven is calling you to stop doubting whether you deserve good things. Worthiness is not something you earn through suffering, it is inherent. You were worthy before the struggle, during the struggle, and after it. Heaven does not reward pain, it responds to openness. Heaven is calling you to open yourself to receiving without guilt, without suspicion, without waiting for something bad to follow. Joy does not need justification, peace does not require permission. Heaven is calling you to imagine a future not defined by what hurt you, but by what healed you. The past informed you, it does not control you. Healing does not erase memory, it changes its influence. Heaven is calling you to trust that the version of you emerging now is wiser, calmer, and more grounded than before. You are no longer chasing validation, you are choosing alignment, and that shift changes everything. Heaven is calling you to remain present even when things start improving. Sometimes growth feels uncomfortable because it requires you to leave familiar pain behind. Do not sabotage peace because it feels unfamiliar. You are allowed to have a life that feels light. Heaven is calling you to embrace the idea that ease can coexist with depth, that calm can coexist with purpose. Struggle is not the only path to meaning. Heaven is calling you to redefine strength. Strength is consistency, patience, emotional honesty, and the courage to keep choosing what is right for you even when it is hard. Heaven is calling you to continue listening, because the call does not end here, it deepens, it becomes quieter, more intuitive, more internal, and the more you trust it, the less you will feel lost. Heaven is calling you to keep walking forward with humility and confidence. Not because you know exactly where you are going, but because you trust the guidance leading you, and as this trust becomes rooted within you, fear loosens its grip, peace settles into your choices, and life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a conversation between you and something greater, something that has always been with you, always guiding, always calling you toward wholeness.